We'll begin in about 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Okay, we're going to start here, hopefully. Everyone should be seeing my presentation. This session is about Mac OS X, commonly called Yosemite. And Yosemite is just the name they give the operating system for the current version of Mac operating system, commonly referred to as OS X or OS X. The session today will be just a brief guide. I'm not going to go over everything. We're just going to go over some highlights. I'll be showing you some things, and then we're going to hopefully jump down into the Finder for just a few minutes and do a couple little things. But most of the stuff I'll show you, you can follow along on your computer. You don't need to wait for me. The current operating system that our Macs are operating on is system 1010, and there's a just commonly referred to as 1010. There's a period between there because it's a release thing. It's codenamed Yosemite, obviously after the national park in California. Apple has a history of codenaming their operating systems. The last one was called Mavericks. Obviously, the current one is Yosemite, and the next version is going to be El Capitan, which is, of course, in Yosemite, and that's the picture of it that you see there. What we're going to cover today is just the basics. I'm going to go over the desktop, the dock, the Finder, the Apple menu, the menu bar, and then some applications, just some preferences there. In the Finder, it's going to be a lot of Windows stuff, meaning how you view the windows and stuff. Because again, this is just designed to be a basics. More in-depth training will be coming later, where we'll dive a little bit deeper into it. We'll start off with our desktop. The desktop, there are 7 major elements to the desktop, and this is a little older picture, but I wanted to show it to you. The first one is the Apple menu, and it's commonly referred to as just the Apple. There'll be many times when someone will say, you know, click on the Apple. And so you go up to the Apple menu. This is where you can access software updates and system preferences. Sleep on laptops. If you're on a desktop, hopefully there's not sleep. Shut down and others. It's commonly referred to as just Apple. 2 is the applications menu. This will change as you go through different slides or different programs, commonly called applications or apps. That little name next to the Apple menu on the picture there, it says Finder, is representing of the actual program that you're in. The Finder is the default program that the operating system boots into. So many times someone will say, oh, click in the Finder. That just means to go to the Finder so that's the current most application. It goes back to the beginning of the Macintosh when they had the Finder, and that was the thing that controlled everything, and that's where you used to find things, hence the name Finder, and it's just stuck. I'll show you how to access the Finder real quick in a few slides. The next one is the menu bar, and the menu bar can, like I said, changes as you go across it, so it can get bigger and smaller depending on what the application wants to present. The status menu, the menu bars, and all that stuff is included in there. On that menu bar, and if you see that it's over on the right. Now, you may or may not have some of those icons. For instance, if you're on a desktop that's not wireless, you probably won't have that Wi-Fi example that's right there. And then the one right next to it is a Bluetooth. You may or may not have Bluetooth turned on. The volume usually will be there, and you can tell that real quick because there'll be little bars right here to show the volume status. This one is a battery indicator. So if you're on a laptop with a battery, you'll have a battery indicator. If you're on a desktop, you shouldn't see that. The next one obviously is the day and the time. The spotlight icon over there is a way for you to bring up Spotlight and do searching. Just results may vary on there with Spotlight. I'm not going to cover Spotlight in detail because it's really a whole training session on Spotlight. So I'll just leave it at that. The next one is the Notification Center. You may have Notification Center disabled. That's very easy to do. We can cover that. It consolidates notification from other things, and that's why we don't use it a lot here, is because we don't use the built-in mail program. We don't use the built-in calendar too much. You can have messages be there. So if you have instant messaging, you can have that notify you when you get a message. If you were on the chat yesterday, there was a message that came up because I didn't turn notification system off yesterday when I was doing the presentation. So just be aware of that. The desktop itself, this is where your applications windows will show up there. You can have different desktops. So there's a program called Mission Control. Again, we'll cover it in another session, where you can have multiple desktops. So you can switch between desktops. It's really handy so you can have different windows open and not have your desktop cluttered, because each desktop can be its own window. And finally, The dock. Oops. Go back. There it goes. The dock. The dock gives you quick access to your most used programs and files. With just a single click by clicking on them, you can open that file, folder, or application. This is where a lot of people get mixed up, is they sometimes think that they only can use the stuff that's on the dock, and that's not, that's not the case. And we'll actually be showing that the dock. Okay, desktop. Lots of people have very, very big, in essence, messy desktops. It becomes very cluttered. You can organize your desktop files by grouping them into files, right, or folders on your desktop. And you can do that real easy by just selecting all the files you want, and then control click, and that's holding down the control key on your keyboard and clicking on one of them, and then a contextual menu will come up, and that contextual menu will give you different options. And one of the options is new folder with selection. So it'll take all of those items that you just selected and put them all in one folder. You give the folder a name, and now all of those files are put in that new folder. Very, very handy to do. I used to do it all the time with months at a time. So I would make a whole folder for that month and put all those files in, especially if you're doing downloads. Sometimes you put your downloads on the desktop and it becomes very, very cluttered. You can also change your background. So many people have found this as one of the few features that I see used almost everywhere I go. They set up their background to change every 10 minutes. Just be aware that if you have it change a lot, that takes up resources, so your computer may run a little bit slower and stuff. Definitely having the desktop be a picture that's unique to you is really handy. It doesn't look like everyone else's. You know exactly whose desktop it is. And I always like to have it when I have my kids up there, just a reminder that, hey, that's why I'm working. You can change it by clicking on your system preferences, and you have various options there. This is a little bit older because it has iPhoto. It's now called Photos. But you can select one of the built-in pictures. You can also choose just a solid color, and you can add another folder. So if you have a folder of pictures that you've downloaded, or you have from a camera or whatever, you can click on that folder and choose that folder there. This is the option I was talking about, changing picture every 30 minutes. Every 30 minutes is probably okay. Every 5 minutes or every 3 seconds, that's a little much. You might want to rethink that one. You need to decide what's displayed on your desktop. And this is where your desktop can be very useful to you. Notice that in the preference that you see here, and this is a Finder preference, so it's under the Finder. You would go Finder, come down to Preferences in the menu bar. This one says show these items on the desktop. Notice that nothing is selected. You may want that. Hides a lot of stuff, makes it a nice clean interface. By default, that's how the OS runs. So when you get it, you should have most of those connected or turned on, and that's by default. We do that to show you real quick so you don't have to go into these Finder preferences. But you can change them yourself. Notice that there are 3 other tabs at the top under Finder Preferences: Labels, Sidebar, and Advanced. We'll cover Sidebar a little bit later. Labels I'm not covering in this basic class. The next one there, it says New Finder Window. So when you open a new Finder window, what's going to show? That's a drop-down box, so you can choose different things. This one is by default, all my files. I usually have it go to my home folder because that's usually where I'm starting from. The dock is located at the bottom of the screen by default. It's a convenient place to keep all your stuff that you use frequently. You can add and remove apps and documents and folders actually to make it larger and smaller, and you can move it to the left or right side of your screen, or you can even hide it when you're not using it. All those preferences are in the system preferences that we'll cover a little bit later, where you can change how the dock is done. Notice that To the right on the default dock, which is at the bottom, there is a single bar, a line right here. This single bar kind of splits the dock between what we call as apps, and these are just basic launchers, and the other part of it. The other part of it always contains the trash. You can't get rid of the trash. And the default folder is the download stack. We also have another default folder on our dock, and that's the home folder that you have on the server. That should always be your name. By default, obviously, the folder is displayed as a stack. When you want to open an item from the dock, you can open an item or a folder, they call it a stack, or a file, and you just click on it, and it opens right up. You can also open a file by dragging it over the app that's in the dock. For example, if you have a Pages document, you can just click that Pages document and drag it down on top of the Pages icon and let go, and it will open Pages, but it will open that document. You can also double click on the document if you happen to do that. You can also open a Finder window, that's what I talked about earlier, by just clicking that Finder icon, which is the little smiley face, the little Mac that kind of goes back and forth. Mary Ellen's joined us. Welcome, Mary Ellen.
Hang on.
Feel free to chime in anytime, Mary Ellen. If I'm saying something or if I'm going too fast, because you obviously have used this a long time as well. Okay, where would I leave off? The Finder icon, that little blue smiley face, where you click on it and it will open up that default Finder window. You can also have other things happen. For instance, you can add a document or an item to your dock by dragging the item down into the dock, and it will be placed in the dock. Notice that going back to that screen there, the apps part, if it's a program that you're putting in, you have to put it on that left side. If it's a file or a folder, you put it on the right side. So you can add things to your dock by dragging them on there. They won't let you put a file and folder on the app side. You got to put it on the right side. You can also change other actions by holding down the Option key, or excuse me, holding on the app and pressing and holding, and you come up and there'll be a options menu. You can also control click. So if you hold down the control and click on the icon, you get that same menu. You can also remove an item from the dock, and you remove an item by clicking and dragging up off the dock, and then you'll see a little contextual menu pop up that says remove. They did that because in previous versions, you could just accidentally swipe and you didn't even know it, and you remove something from your dock. So now they make it so you have to really click and hold and drag it up for 2 seconds, so that little icon will come up and say remove. And that's what I was talking about. To add an item, you just drag it down. You can drag files and folders to the right of that separator, apps to the left. If you move a dock to the side or left, then obviously you drag it up or below. You can also delete items from your Mac. So if you have an item that you don't want anymore, you can just click and drag it right down onto the trash can. The trash can will show something in it if it has anything that's been emptied or have anything that's been thrown away. To empty it, you click and hold in the trash and you choose empty. There's also a Finder command up in the menu bar. Dock preferences. Again, from the Apple menu, coming down to System Preferences, you click on Dock, and you're given several options. Here, you can choose how big the dock is. You can also turn on magnification. That's really handy if you have a lot of items in your dock and you want to have the magnification increase. And what it does is it increases on the particular app that you're or icon that you're on, so it makes it a little bit bigger so you can see it. If you have a lot of items on your dock, that comes in very handy. The Genie effect is something they brought out, I don't know, 4 years, 5 years ago. that kind of animates it, the opening and closing of items from your dock. It's gone away a little bit because it's not been as emphasized. And there are other options down there below. Double clicking a window to minimize it. You can turn that off or on. Minimizing windows puts them into the applications icon. The animation is the one where you can do that different effect up there. That's the drop down box. And then you can also automatically hide and show the dock. And a lot of people do this because the dock gets in their way. So they check that checkbox to automatically hide and show the dock. And what that does is when you move your mouse pointer down to where the dock is, wherever you've chosen it, because there's the position on the screen, notice the only place you can't have the dock is at the top, because that's where the menu bar always is. But you can have it show up when you move your mouse to that part, whether it's the bottom, left, or right. And that will then bring up the dock, so it'll kind of appear. And then the last one is show indicators for open applications. There's a little black dot underneath an application that is showing that app is open. That's really handy if someone says, oh, my computer's running really slow, and you look at the dock and every application is open, but they're really only using, Safari. All the rest of them are open, they just didn't close them. So just be aware of that you can look at the dock real quick and see what programs are open. Okay, dock shortcuts. I added this in here just because I thought it might be helpful. You can, if you're watching this video later, you can pause it and write down the ones that you think might need or try and remember them. I'm just going to quickly go over that. You can change the dock size real quick by placing the pointer over that little separator bar, the one in between the apps and the document side. If you hold that till a double arrow appears, you can drag to the left or right if it's on the bottom, or up and down, and it will make the whole dock larger or smaller. Very similar to the preferences that we were just talking about. This is just a shortcut to do the same thing. To rearrange an item, you can click and hold on it and then drag it to where you want it to. That's another way to keep an item in the dock. So if you open a new application that wasn't in your dock, and now it shows up in your dock because you're using it, and if you quit, it goes away. Instead, if you just move it, click and hold and move it, it will stay in your dock. You can also see an item's menu by control clicking, and we talked about that earlier. You can also control click that separator, and it will bring up the dock shortcut menu, which is kind of handy. You can also see all of the app's open windows. So if you have Word open and you have 7 different documents in Word, you can open up control click on the Word icon, and it will show you all the different windows that you have open in just Word, so you can go right to the one you want. You can also add an app to the dock by control clicking it and say keep in dock. So that's another way, rather than moving it, you can do keep in dock. And finally on there, open an item in the Finder. If you control click on it, you can say choose show in Finder. A couple more. Option click the current app's icon to switch to the previous app and hide the one you're on. So if you have 3 apps open and you only want to have one visible, you can option click on it and it will go switch to that one and hide the one that you were in. You can switch to another app and hide all other apps by doing option command click on the app you want to. So you can add the extra key of the command. So option command. And that's that little, I call it a cloverleaf symbol right here, the command key. It used to be called the Apple key, but when they went with the Apple menu, they got rid of the Apple key on the keyboard. If you have a really old keyboard, it probably still has that little Apple. And actually, there used to be a really long time ago, going back in history, there was open Apple and closed Apple. One was colored in and one was just a highlight. To quit an open app, you can control click and then say choose quit. And this is really handy if you have a bunch of apps open, with little dots at the bottom, and you really want to do them, close them, you can quit them. Remember, quit and close a window is not the same thing. You can close a window, the app is still open, so it doesn't have to open all the way back up the next time you want to use it. If you're going in and out of an app a lot, you don't want to quit it, you just want to close that window. But sometimes you really do want to quit it, so you can use the file menu usually has quit, or you can just choose the quit from the icon on the dock. You can also force quit, and this is really handy if some program in OS X is really kind of stable compared to previous versions. It doesn't have too many times where it just hangs. Sometimes it will, and you can use the force quit option, and that's Control Option, and click on that icon, and you can choose force quit. You can also use keyboard access to access the dock. Unless you have your function keys redone, you can use Control F3 to move the dock, and then you can use the left or right arrows to move from icon to icon if you don't want to use a mouse. And then empty the trash, you can always do Control click on the trash and empty. The Finder, that wonderful little blue guy. The iconic blue icon with the smiling face. It's actually like, I don't know, the home base for your Mac. You use it to organize and access just about everything, including documents and any files, movies and stuff, and applications. To open a Finder window, all you do is click on that icon in the dock. It opens up a new window depending on your preferences, and you can then click on the desktop if you want to, or click on your documents folder or wherever from that sidebar. I'm going to cover that. Oops, went too far. The first window that you may see, if by default, is the All My Files, and that's what you see here. This is a special window that shows all the files that you've accessed in your on your Mac, and they're done by when you access them last. So on this example, there are 6 documents there that are visible, and if you look through the window, there's PDF documents, which is the next one. There's 4 of them there, and it only shows you the 3, and you can see more if you click on the header for that. So documents would show you all the documents and stuff. That would be the same thing as going up to the dock icon and selecting New File, New Window. So in the Finder, if you were in the Finder, rather than opening a new window, you could do File, New Window, or you could right-click and say New Window. You can change how items are displayed in the Finder window by dragging and arranging them or changing their view. You use the View menu to change the view of the current Finder window. You can also click on the corresponding View button in the toolbar that appears. So this is the icon view. And you notice it's right here. There's little icons, little view here. So this is a Finder window, and this button here is the icon view. And I happen to be in the applications folder, so it's showing me my current applications. This is list view. So you can see the list view here shows those same things in a list format. This is what's called the column view. That's the third one over. And it shows a hierarchical column view. So if you have a lot of folders, this is a handy way to do it, because it shows the first folder, and then inside that folder has this folder, and inside that folder is this document. And I'm not double clicking, but if you just highlight it, it'll show you a preview of it. That's the nice thing about column view, is it shows you a preview of it. Now, some documents you don't have a preview of it, so it just shows as a generic icon. And then finally, there's cover flow. And cover flow is really handy if you're looking at pictures, especially whether they're JPEGs or GIFs or whatever. It shows you kind of like a carousel. I don't know, I'm dating myself, I think. Sorry, my throat was dry there. It's called the cover flow, and that's that 4th icon here. Using folders. Obviously, I've talked about the fact that you want to keep things organized, especially on your desktop. You can use the Finder to control your folders. And the Finder shows all your files that are on your hard drive, whether they're a thumb drive or your built-in hard drive, whatever is connected to, including the server. And you can organize these files into folders. You can even store folders within other folders. There are certain special folders that are included in the sidebar, the Finder sidebar. So when you have a Finder window open, there's a sidebar there that you see. The top one of which is all my files. Several other ones are including applications, documents, music. You can also add your Google Drive to that favorites bar. To view items stored within a folder, you just double click on that folder and you see its contents. The name of the folder is shown at the top of the window to let you know what you're in. You can also use the Option key and click on that folder name, and it will show you a hierarchical view of where that folder is. That sidebar, there are, like I said, several favorites that are listed there. There are ones that you use frequently, such as desktop and downloads. You can add your Google Drive folder there. You can just add a folder by dragging it right in. By default, it has 4 sections, the Finder sidebar. The favorites at the top, the devices, something called shared. Those are servers that you're connected to, or they could be other computers. So if you have someone else that's sharing a file with you, you would see them in the shared. And tags. Tags are a way for you to quickly find files. I'm not going to cover tags. There's going to be a couple mentions where you're seeing tags. Just keep that in the back of your mind for the next time. All right, going up to the top now, we have our menu bar. And the menu bar changes, obviously, as I talked about, depending on what program you're in. We're dealing with the Finder right now. So the biggest menu bar that I want to show you is the Go menu. The Go menu lets you go to certain places very quickly. Notice that there are Command key shortcuts there. So, for instance, Home is Command Shift H. So if I was in the Finder, I would hit Command Shift H. I would go right to my home folder, which is your house on the computer. You can also go right to your applications folder by the Command Shift A, desktop Command Shift D. Just an easy way to go right to it. Notice that there's also a Command up arrow to go to the enclosing folder. I mean, that's the folder that's above the current folder that you're in the Finder. Again, I told you about special folders. The applications folder is one that holds all of your apps. And this is where all the rest of the apps are that are on your computer that aren't on your dock. So when you think about having a dock and that's not all the programs you have on there, you can go to it by double clicking on it. You can also use the Launchpad. Now, this is different than ClassLink Launchpad. It's named the same thing, but the Launchpad is the little rocket ship icon on your dock, and that's called Launchpad. And that's really handy, and we'll cover that in a few minutes here. Your home folder is another special folder, and that's that folder I was talking about that's your home on your local computer. Every time you log into a computer, you get a home folder that's local to that computer. Not the same as your network home folder that follows you wherever you go. This one stays on that computer. So if you're using this computer today and you use a different computer tomorrow, that home folder that's local will not be the same unless you manually copy those things. Your network home folder stays with you wherever you go. That home folder contains various things. Your iTunes library no longer stores them in your iPhoto library. It's just called Photos in Mavericks. And then your movies, if you have any movies or photo booth movies, are stored in your movies folder. And the desktop folder stores everything that you place on your desktop, so you can see it both ways. It's a little, I don't know, redundant, I think. You can also rename folders. To rename a folder, all you do is click on it, and hit the return key and type the new name. So click and hold, or click and return, type away what you want it to be called, and then press return again, and it will rename it. Deleting an item. When you no longer want something, whether it's a file or whatever, you can select the item, drag it down to the trash can, and it will be marked for deletion. Again, it's in that dock over on the right-hand side if your dock is at the bottom. That sidebar that we were talking about, you can add items to the sidebar in the Finder window by just dragging them over, the icon over into that favorite section, and you can add it in there. The Finder sidebar is really handy. You can also hide the Finder sidebar so it's not visible. And there's an example showing you adding an item. So that folder that I want to put in there, or even a server that I go to all the time, I can add to my favorites bar. Toolbar. At the top of the Finder window is a toolbar. This toolbar includes many shortcuts, such as switching views that we talked about earlier, but you can also do the tagging or searching. This is different than the spotlight search at the top. So in the Finder window, that window you have, that's where you would have the tagging items or searching for files. You can also share an item through email. Now, the email sharing only works if you have first class as your default email. So just be careful of that. And then the action button, where you can do such things as copying and compressing. That's that menu that I talked about earlier, the action menu, where you could put things into a folder. Oops. That's the action menu right there. That's a handy little thing, the action menu, because you could do all kinds of things. That many of those items show up when you do a control click on a folder or file, group of files in the Finder. Quick Look. Quick Look is a really handy feature, and if you watched the FileMaker video yesterday, I showed you a quick example of Quick Look. This is where you can do a quick preview. You can't really do anything with it other than look at it, but you can see a quick preview of any item really in the Finder by just selecting it and then going up to File, Quick Look, or just pressing the space bar when the item is selected, and it will open up a Quick Look. Again, pressing space bar to get rid of that Quick Look. Just handy little feature. And there's an example. So had this icon here, you press the space bar and it opens up a bigger window so you can see the actual text that's there. And then what's nice is it automatically tells you you can click here to open with preview, or you can use this as a send button. The menu bar that we talked about earlier. The menu bar is at the top, and it contains that Apple menu, that different app menus that change, that status menu, the spotlight, and the notification center. This is just a bigger view of what I talked about earlier. That Apple menu. That Apple menu is where you have sometimes frequently used items. There are people that have never gone into the menu. I don't know how they shut down their computer at night, but it's there. I guess you could press the power button and hold it. That's a really bad way to do it. From the Apple menu, you can have various things such as log out, shut down, restart. You can also go into your system preferences, which we talked about earlier. You can also force quit. And this is so if you're in a particular program and you don't remember that Option Command key, you can come down here to the Apple menu and choose force quit that program that you're in. You're not limited to what's just on the dock. Many people think that, and that's not true. So I want to make sure that it's clear right now. You can use the applications under the Go menu, or, and this is just an example, or you can use Launchpad. And Launchpad is a really fast way to find and open your apps. That's that little rocket ship icon that is on the dock. It should be always there to the left, right next to the Finder icon. In Launchpad, Launchpad automatically puts items in alphabetical order. You can rearrange those items in Launchpad by just clicking and dragging them in the order that you want. If there's not enough room to show all of your apps on one screen, all you have to do is move it over to the right and a new page will be created. There should be plenty of room for as many apps as you have on your computer, because it'll just create more pages for you. So there's an example of it. Notice here at the bottom there are 3 pages, so there's 3 dots at the bottom, and to get to the next one you would use 2 fingers on your trackpad or the arrow key on your keyboard to go to the next page. In navigating Launchpad, if you click on Launchpad, you'll see the 3 dots at the bottom that I'm talking about, but you also see a little icon of each app. To get into one, you just double click on it and it will launch it for you. You can also leave Launchpad, and this is an example using a trackpad by using any of these. So press the escape key or the Launchpad key again. You can also use the dock, and you can switch using mission control, which we'll cover in a different session. The Go menu. This is the menu that I talked about earlier that really is one of the key things that you want to always be aware of in the Finder. From the Go menu, you can do or go right to your applications folder, but you can also go to your home folder or the applications or the downloads, your desktop real quick, and you get to them. Another item that sometimes shows up right here, I think, underneath the computer, is library. And that one won't show up unless you hold the Option key down. So from the Go menu, you would hold the Option key and say Go, and when you do that, a library folder will show up here. Library is an important folder because that's where some preferences are that you really need access to. So especially if you're having keychain errors. Now we're getting into applications. Applications, like I said, are not just on your dock. In the applications folder, so over here on my favorites, my sidebar, I've had selected applications. And these are applications that I have listed that you have access to. So you would double click on them and open them up, or if they're in folders, and there'll be this icon here shows that this is a folder. Some applications are built in. These are the 3 Apple specific programs, applications, or apps as they're commonly called: Pages, Numbers, and Keynote. If you're using these, they're very easy to use. Just be aware that sometimes they're not shareable easily with people that aren't using a Mac or don't have access to these applications. I'm not trying to dissuade you. We do have other apps that are specific to Liverpool, including First Class, FileMaker. Obviously, we install Microsoft Office, which is Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. I'm trying to make sure that everyone tries to use Google Chrome because it's a integrated browser for us. Google Drive I covered earlier, and we'll have another session on it again. Google Drive is very, very handy. It is an application in addition to being a website that you would go to, drive.google.com. Acrobat Pro, which is another session that's coming up in a couple weeks. VLC is a video viewer, so you can view videos that you've downloaded or that you've been sent without having a web browser. So that's really handy. VLC should be installed on every computer, and that's the program that we use to view videos. It's a default standard, de facto standard. It's really, really handy for us to use because it's free and it views just about any kind of file. And then, of course, we have our ClassLink Launchpad, which is different than Launchpad on the dock. It's a web browser interface that's actually an extension that's added into the browser. Okay. Earlier, I had a person stop me in the hall and say, where did my save to go? So I added these slides here about it. So when you're in an application, and you want to do save, you can save obviously as much as you want. Some programs save automatically, namely the Apple branded ones, Pages, Numbers, Keynotes. FileMaker is another one that saves automatically, and TextEdit, which is a built-in one that we don't really use too much, but it does have autosave as well. If your program isn't one of those, which most likely it's not, you really want to save often. And that was one thing is when I used to teach a class, I would say, save often. You won't have to worry about losing anything. If you don't save, you can lose. And I know people type a huge paper and they never saved, and they lose everything because something happens. So save as much as you want. It doesn't hurt, especially if it's something you're going to be relying on. Even if you have a program that saves automatically, like the Pages, Numbers, and Keynotes, you can always click File Save, and it will save that particular version right there. However, the first time you save a document, it's going to give you a place to name it. So if you open a new document, no matter what the program is just about, and you do File Save, or Command S usually is a Command key shortcut, you're going to give it a chance to name that document. So you want to do the name. You can also add a tag to it. And again, we'll talk about tags later. You can choose where to save the document from that Where menu. So is it going to save to my desktop? Is it going to save to my Documents menu? Where is it going to save? And specifically where inside there. You can click that little disclosure box and show exactly where it's going to go. Oops, jumped over that one. Save a copy. In most apps, that file menu either has duplicate or save as. So duplicate is like save as, but it's not called save as. They changed it in Yosemite to duplicate. So you do one of the following. This is going to save a copy of a document. So you open a document that you've already created or you've already saved. Now you want to save it in a different place or in a different name. Notice, different place or different name, or both. So different place and a different name. You would choose File Save As or File Duplicate. If you want to do File Save As and that you don't see Save As, hold down the Option key. Save As will be there. Okay, hope that helps alleviate some of the confusion in those. If you want to change the format, you can also click the Format button. So like if you're in a Word document and you want to save it as something else, you can click that Format button and change it to something else. A handy feature there would be like you're opening or you're saving an Excel document, but the person that wants it in a CSV document format. So you would choose from the Format menu, CSV, and it would save that file name with the CSV extension and put that in that file format for you. Okay. Windows Basics. I had this at the beginning and then we moved it around, so sorry it's a little out of order. Everything that you see on your Mac is displayed via some kind of window, whether it's the desktop window that kind of just shows up or a full Finder window. You can have as many file windows open as you want. Only the current one that's active is got a different emphasis, and it usually has, the way you can tell is it has the 3 dots in the upper left hand corner that are colored. All your other windows, whether it's an application window or a Finder window or whatever, has those 3 dots gray. That's the easiest way to tell what window is current, especially if you have multiple windows of the same application. So for instance, I'm in Chrome and I have 3 windows open in Chrome. Only one of my windows has the 3 dots that are colored. The rest of them are all gray. So I have my red, yellow, and green dots. So this tells you here, the active app is at the top. So I'm in Maps, and that's the active app window. Notice that the cover flow down below of the girls' pictures is not active, and it's gray. You can't see the dots because it's hidden, but that's an example. It's not active. You can also move a window by clicking its title bar and then moving it around. And I do that all the time. I move windows where I want them. I don't know why. I've always done it where I move a window where I want it, and I move them all the time. You can resize a window by dragging the window edges. Notice not the top, the menu bar, but the actual edge at the top, the bottom, or the side. You can also click usually the corner, whether it's right or left corner, and do both up and down and left and right. You can also expand a window by double clicking the title bar, and it will make it fill the screen. You can return to that standard view by double clicking that title bar again, or option clicking that green button. If you want to minimize a button, you can click the yellow button in the middle. So here's the button to switch to full screen. Many apps let you expand to actually cover the entire screen, including the menu bar, so it hides the menu bar. Sometimes that's a little disconcerting to people, and they think, whoa, wait a second, what just happened? Just usually hit the escape key, and it will get you right back. You can also click that green button, and it will go back. Excuse me. If you have multiple apps open, sometimes it's really hard to find the one you want. Here are some quick short keys. I use the first one, obviously, a lot, and it's just Command Tab. So I hold my Command key down with my thumb, and I tap with my finger the Tab key, and I just cycle through all my open apps. It's really nice. I can scroll through all open apps by just holding that and pressing it as many times as I want, which is the second one. You can also press Command Tab and hold down and use your mouse, because it will show up in a little window, and I can move the mouse to go right to where I want to. I can always hit the escape key and it will go right back. If I've pressed Command Tab and I'm holding down that Command key, I can also press H to hide that app or Q to quit that app. Handy little features that I didn't know until I started making these slides. And obviously the red button in the Finder window closes that window. When you close the app's window, that window closes, but remember, the app still remains open. If you want to quit that app, click the app's name in the menu bar and choose Quit, and it will have the app's name. For instance, in this picture here, Safari is the open app. To quit Safari, you would go Safari and down to Quit Safari. I already covered that. Duplicate. Okay, to create a folder. If you're on your desktop and you want to create a new folder, you can just open a new window and create that where you want to create that folder. You choose File, New Folder, or you can press the Shift Command N. So to create a new folder, you have two different ways real quick there. If that new folder command is dimmed, that means you can't create a folder in that current location. In other words, if you're on that Finder window and you're in the All My Files section, you can't create a folder in All My Files because it doesn't know really where to do it. Those All My Files are showing you from all across your home folder. Once you've created that folder, it'll show up, and it usually comes up as untitled. So you just enter the folder name. It's already highlighted for you. So just begin to type the name, press return, and it names it for you. And again, I think I covered a little bit of this earlier, but to move items into folders, you can put an item into a folder by just dragging it right in. You can put several items by first selecting those items and then dragging just one of them, click and drag into the folder and let go, and it will move them into there. You can also keep an item in its original copy location and make a copy of it in a folder by holding down the Option key and then dragging it. This is where a lot of people want to make a copy and they don't end up doing it the right way. They end up moving it because they don't hold the Option key down. So if you want to make a copy of it, any of those other two at the top, you just hold the Option key down and it will make a copy as well. The last one is if you want to keep an item and put an alias in it, you hold down the Option and Command keys. I would be very, very leery about using aliases because an alias is an old way of doing things that they used to do on OS X, and it's really, really hard to figure out now because you don't know which program you're actually saving, especially if you're moving it. So I would have not used aliases unless you absolutely have to. And obviously you can use the Command D to duplicate a file, which is making an additional copy, and it will say the name of the file copy. You can also copy to a different location, whether it's a hard drive or a thumb drive or a network location, by just moving it to it. You don't have to hold down the Option key unless you want to move them, and then you hold down just the Command key. So if you're just copying them, you just drag them. If you want to actually move it, in other words, put a copy there and then delete the original, you would hold down the Command key. That's this last one right here. You can quickly group multiple items in a folder by selecting the items you want. We covered that one, didn't we? Yes, we covered that one earlier. You can also merge two folders with the same name. If you have two folders that are identical names at two different locations, so let's say one is in your Documents folder and one is in your Desktop folder, you can hold down the Option key, drag one folder to the location that contains the folder with the same name, and a dialog will appear. You just click Merge, and that merges those two things, keeping different versions of the files. It's really handy, and it will only appear if one of the folders contains items that are not in the other folder. So you can't go wrong. That's a really handy feature, the merge thing. Holding down the Option key when you drag a folder of the same name. System preferences. We alluded to it a little bit earlier with some of the preferences that we've talked about, whether they're your dock preferences. I think we talked about Finder preferences as well. System preferences are system-wide, and they really make the Mac fit to you. So it goes through, makes it so that it's very specific to how you want it set up. To open the system preferences, you can use the system preferences icon that's on your dock, or you can use the Apple menu and choose system preferences. And that will go right in to your system preferences. That looks very similar to this. They can change depending on what's installed on your computer and what's been added to it. Your icons will change, obviously, depending on what's installed. Any of these items that you have can be clicked on. So, for instance, if I had in this one, I have a trackpad connected, I can click on my trackpad and change the preferences for that trackpad. I can click on the printers and scanners and add a printer that I just got. I don't have to wait for someone. Sometimes you're going to go into a preference and there's going to be a lock at the bottom. If that lock is at the bottom, you're not going to be able to use it. You can see it maybe. One of the ones that we are going to be asking everyone to use is that Users and Groups one. And that Users and Groups one is where you would change your password. So when you change your password there, it looks like it's locked, but the Change Password button in the upper right-hand corner is not. You can change your password. If, however, you have a system preference that you want changed and that lock icon is there, just contact your building TATs and they will help get you through that preference. Okay, let's see if I can do this right. I lost my window. Ah, there we go. Okay, Mary Ellen,
Yes.
add anything?
I just wanted to review a couple of things that you touched on, and one of them was the Finder, when you talked about the Finder. Um, you also talked about the new Finder window, and I wanted to talk about the purpose for that. What I do sometimes if I'm moving, want to organize my folders, and I want to move it, say, from the movies folder to the pictures folder, I will then open a new Finder window so that I have both of those folders open and I can drop and drag any individual item or the whole folder into wherever I need to. So that's one use for the new Finder window.
Ah,
The other thing I wanted to do was add a plug for Google Docs. We talked about some applications not being able to save, and some of them do save automatically. Well, Google Docs saves everything that you do in it automatically. So that's a plus for Google Docs. And the last thing I wanted to add was about applications, having applications open. I've seen time and time again, and I'm sure you do have, Sean, where people's computers are running really, really slow and they don't understand why. And when you look at their computer, they have all of the applications opened, and that shows in the dock with a little highlight at the very bottom. It's barely visible, but you can see it if you look for it. And they close the window of the app, but they don't actually quit out of the app. So those are just a couple things I wanted to add.
I know I touched on one of those when we were talking about the apps that are open, that little indicator dot at the bottom. I'm trying to see if I can show that. Here we go. This may go freaky for just a second. Yep. I'll move that off there for a second. Okay, so, oops, didn't want that. Again, look at that. Press it again and it goes back. I'm going to minimize that and minimize this. Down here, it's a little hard to see, but see how I have magnification on? So as I roll over, it comes up a little bit bigger. Underneath, like there's Chrome, and there's my calendar, and there's system preferences, there's Excel and Word, and Acrobat. All those programs are open. They have the little dot underneath there. That's what Mary Ellen was talking about. And that's what we want to be careful of, that we don't have all of these programs open and our computer's running so slow and we go, oh my goodness, how am I ever going to get through all this? Does that make sense?
Yep, perfect.
And what was the other one? Oops, I just clicked stop. What was the other one?
Just that Google Docs saves everything automatically.
Oh, yes, yes. So here's my Google Drive folder. And anything that I open in here, whether it doesn't have to be a Google a Google Doc. So a lot of these are Google Docs, but let's just show this one. This one is a picture. If I change this picture and I save it right where it is, it's going to stay in my Google Docs, so I don't have to worry about it being backed up because I'm still in my Google Drive. And earlier I talked about the fact that you can hold the Option key down and click there, so I can see my entire folder icon or history of where this is. So it's on my computer, on my hard drive, in my users folder, in my home folder, my drive, Google Drive folder, and then my pics. And I said earlier it was Option. It's actually the Command key. So sorry about that. So it's Command, click on the title here, and it will show you the hierarchy. And again, that lets you see where it is when you're talking about where a folder is. So everything I save in my Google Drive, not necessarily an actual, like here's a PDF. So anything that I save that's not a Google folder or Google program, these are all Google Sheets, but any of these other things will save right back to here, so I don't have to worry about it. And when you're doing a file save as, I think I can do that right here. So if I go to new workbook, I'm going to do file save as. And it's going to ask me, where do I want to save it? If I click Google Drive, right here are my favorites, because remember it shows up. And if you don't see that, if you see this instead, you should see your Google Drive down here. This is the Where menu that I was talking about earlier. This is the disclosure triangle that I talked about that shows exactly where. You don't have to have that there. I do by default because I'd save things in hundreds of locations. But this Where thing will have your Google Drive if you have Google Drive installed. And I can name it there and save it, and it will go right into my Google Drive. Now I don't have to worry about it. And you can have your file hierarchy in your Google Drive the way you would have your folders in your documents folder. Okay?
Yep, and the last thing, if you could show, Sean, is the new Finder window. An example of that, I see you have folders on your desktop. If you wanted to drag that to your documents folder using new Finder window, there's other ways to do it, but if you could just demonstrate that.
Okay, so there's the new Finder window, and what am I dragging this up?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, so here's my window. So if I have my documents folder, and I'm going to go to icon view, and I want to take this folder, this is a good folder here because this is the conference I went to, and I don't need it on my desktop anymore. So I just click and drag, and it goes up into there, and now I've moved it. Again, earlier I talked about the fact that you can hold down the Option key, and the icon changes. It's maybe hard to see here a little bit, but the icon changes to a green plus. That actually makes a copy of that folder. So I have 2 copies. If you want that, you can use that command key. I don't really want this. So I'm going to show you how. You click and drag it to your trash can, and then you click and hold on your trash can and say empty trash. And verify, yes, I do want to empty my trash. And my trash file, well, there's a lot of files in there, goes to the empty state. Okay? Anything else?
No, I think that you covered it all.
Good. And look at that. We finished early again. Just a reminder that all of these sessions will be available on the Google Chrome training folder that's in Chrome under the training menu when you're in a Google web page, whether it's Drive or Docs or wherever you are in Google, and that training menu shows up where it says LCSD training. Those videos will be listed there as well. You can also use the links that I sent in the emails earlier, the YouTube ones. Those will be archived and available for you at any time. Thanks, and have a great day.